There exists in this universe a law so profound and yet so commonly ignored that most men will live and die in quiet anxiety, not because they lacked intelligence, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they never claimed dominion over the one place where all wealth begins, the mind. You will never be free of stress about money until you understand one thing. Money is not physical, it is psychological. It is not earned first through labor, it is earned first through clarity, focus, and inner command. All money, all wealth, all external power, it is downstream of internal order. Until your mind is in control, your finances will never be. This is not a motivational slogan. It is the hidden doctrine of those who win, the secret they do not teach in schools. The one lesson no employer, no parent, no professor will give you unless they themselves have mastered it. And it is this: the man who controls his mind can never be poor. The man who does not, even with millions, is still in bondage. I am not here to flatter you. I am here to awaken you, to deliver to you the words that men of power whisper behind closed doors. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the casual listener. This is a transmission for those who are ready to see and, through seeing, to seize. So listen carefully, with your full attention, because I will say it clearly. If you do not master your emotions will master your economics. If you allow fear to dictate your thinking, you will spend your life buying security, never building freedom. If you allow guilt, comparison, approval seeking, and panic to invade your decisions, you will leak power, time, and money like a broken vessel in a storm. But if you master emotional detachment, if you build mental discipline like a steel spine through the center of your life, if you learn to control your responses instead of reacting from pain, then money will flow toward you. Opportunity will seek you. People will trust you, because you will become the rarest man alive, a man of calm command in a world of emotional chaos. Now understand this. Stress about money is not caused by lack of money. It is caused by lack of clarity, lack of structure, lack of sovereignty. It is caused by living in reaction instead of design, by spending before you plan, by consuming before you create, by wanting more without first mastering what you already have. And at the root of all of this is the same enemy, emotional entanglement. What is emotional entanglement? It is the condition in which your financial decisions are no longer made by your goals, but by your moods. It is when your spending is driven by stress, your saving is driven by fear, your investment is driven by desperation, and your work is driven by the need to prove something to someone who doesn't even think about you anymore. And so I say again, you must detach completely, unapologetically from emotional thinking about money. That does not mean you become careless. It means you become precise. It means your financial life is no longer governed by stories, shame, or scarcity, but by strategy. Let me ask you, who is in charge when you open your bank app, your mind, or your mood? Who is in control when you feel behind in life, your purpose, or your panic? Who is deciding when you say yes to another expense, another distraction, another dopamine-driven decision, your discipline, or your desire? If it is not your conscious mind, if it is not your inner commander, then it is your inner child, and children cannot build wealth. Children beg, children panic. Children spend to feel seen. But you, if you are ready, must become the architect. And that requires something most never develop: mental discipline. Mental discipline is the force that takes your scattered thoughts and aligns them into focused power. It is the inner code that says, I will not buy that today because my future is more valuable than my impulse. I will not take that job because it violates my vision. I will not collapse into fear because I am trained for pressure. Mental discipline is the crown worn by the few who lead their lives instead of follow their urges. And I tell you, once you develop it, once you forge it through repetition, solitude, clarity, and choice, then you will never again be afraid of money. Not because you have millions, but because you have mastery. It begins with one law: definiteness of purpose. Hill wrote it. Every builder of wealth lived it. And you, if you're ready to rise, must make it your daily law. Definiteness of purpose means you no longer live vaguely, you do not hope to do well, you do not kind of want to succeed. You are clear. clear about what you want, clear about what it will cost, clear about who you must become to get it. It means you wake up each day with a target and you do not put your head down until you move closer to it. It means you do not chase 15 income streams, you build one with brutal focus until it is strong enough to support others. It means you do not take advice from people whose lives you would not trade places with no matter how loud they are. Clarity kills anxiety. Focus kills fear. Purpose dissolves stress. Do not ask, how can I stop worrying about money? Ask instead, what financial future am I building with precision every single day? If you cannot answer that, you must stop everything else and find the answer. Because until you know where you're going, every step feels like a crisis. But once your aim is locked in, every step becomes sacred. Let's go further into the next law, self-discipline. This is where emotion meets order. This is where desire is tamed by structure. This is where you stop being a consumer of motivation and become a producer of results. Self-discipline is not about denying yourself joy. It is about delaying gratification in service of power. It is the mature mind that says, yes, I could buy this, but I'd rather build something with that energy. Yes, I feel like resting, but I'd rather win the day and rest like a king when the work is done. Yes, I'm afraid, but I move anyway, because fear does not own me anymore. Self-discipline turns chaos into confidence. It turns ideas into income. It turns vision into victory. You must become a disciple of discipline. Let it govern your finances, your time, your conversations. Track what you earn. Track what you spend. Know your numbers like a surgeon knows his tools. Do not fear the data, master it. Because every time you avoid reality, you empower fear. But every time you face reality, you reclaim power. And now, we arrive at a weapon few know how to use. Autosuggestion. This is not mystical. This is neurological law. Your mind believes what it hears repeatedly, especially when it hears it from you. And so the poor man tells himself, I'm broke, I can't, it's hard, I'm not lucky. And his subconscious obeys. But the wealthy mind, the builder's mind, the disciplined mind says every single day, I am calm under pressure. I am in full control of my financial decisions. I do not chase. I create. I do not stress. I strategize. I do not beg. I build. I do not wish. I will. And by repeating this, not once but daily, hourly, with emotional conviction, you train your subconscious to serve your vision. You must understand, your outer life always lags behind your inner script. Change the script, and the results will follow. Mental neutrality is the silent power behind all financial calm. It is the art of staying mentally centered when others lose their grip, of observing reality without panicking over it, of making decisions from alignment, not emotion. The average person, when faced with a financial dip, spirals. They do not see numbers, they feel doom. They do not see a moment in time. They see a verdict on their future. But the one who trains neutrality does not flinch. He sees data as data. He sees feedback as fuel. He sees downturns as moments, not identities. He does not assign meaning prematurely. He does not react blindly. He breathes. He studies. He calculates. He chooses. And because of this, he wins not once, but again and again, while others burn themselves with impulsive decisions. Mental neutrality means you no longer attach your identity to your circumstances. You do not call yourself poor because your account is low. You do not call yourself rich because of a temporary high. You do not over-celebrate the rise, and you do not mourn the fall. You remain level, unshaken, clear. Why? Because the truth is simple. Money is a number, not a narrative. Stress comes not from numbers, but from the story you attach to them. The mentally disciplined mind separates story from situation. It says, these are the numbers. What do they mean objectively? What actions do they require? And with that, panic becomes precision. Now let us move into the power of calmness, a discipline far more powerful than speed. In today's world, everyone is chasing speed. Fast success, fast cash, fast results. But speed without calmness is chaos. The man who acts fast but cannot think clearly is no different from the gambler. But the one who remains calm in meetings, in investments, in negotiations, in crisis, that man is the most dangerous in the room. Because he cannot be rushed, he cannot be baited, he cannot be trapped. Calmness is not laziness, it is readiness. It is the clarity to see 5 steps ahead because you are not blinded by emotional fog. It is the ability to speak slowly when others scream. It is the patience to wait while others rush into failure. It is the strength to delay gratification while others burn their future for a brief feeling. When you are calm, you can calculate. You can watch the world act foolishly, and you can position yourself accordingly. Calmness is a profit multiplier. Calmness is how wealth flows toward you, because wealth seeks discipline, not desperation. Make it your mission to become the calmest man in every room. Train your breath, train your voice, train your posture. Refuse to allow external urgency to infect your internal clarity. You are not just calm for peace, you are calm for dominance. Now we go deeper still into the principle of thought first. Understand this. The average person feels, then reacts, then thinks later. And this sequence is the blueprint for financial disaster. The emotional reaction comes first, the damage is done. Only afterward do they reflect, but by then, the money is gone, the deal is broken, the opportunity is lost. You must reverse the order. You must discipline yourself to think first, act second, and allow emotion to follow only if it supports the mission. This principle applies to everything. Before you spend, think. Before you invest, think. Before you panic, think. Before you speak about your finances, think. Before you compare yourself to another man's wealth, think. Before you doubt yourself, think. Is this thought mine or is it inherited from fear? Thinking first is the mark of the master. The one who trains his thoughts trains his destiny. You must become ruthless in your discipline. Pause before every decision. Train your mind to ask, does this move me toward my vision or away from it? Am I reacting from fear or responding from clarity? What is the long-term cost of this short-term decision? Most people will never do this. And that is why most people will live their lives reacting to money, chasing it, fearing it, rather than commanding it. But not you. You are different now, because you do not just think, you think first. Now we advance to the law of personal initiative, a law that makes the difference between the passive dreamer and the disciplined builder. Personal initiative means this. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer ask, what should I do? You decide. You act. You create your own orders. This is the engine of all financial peace, because the man who waits, waits forever. But the man who moves, who initiates, who takes responsibility for his path, that man creates momentum that no fear can stop. Stress about money thrives in stagnation, but movement, decisive, intentional, purposeful movement destroys it. You may not know the full path, but you always know the next step. Take it, then take the next. And with each step, the fog clears. The fear weakens, the power returns. You must make it a rule. No day passes without initiative. Build something, learn something, reach out, apply, execute, create. When you live by initiative, your mind stays sharp, your emotions stay in check, and your finances begin to reflect the quality of your character, not the chaos of your feelings. And now we bring forward the final law, accurate thinking. This, above all, is the sword you must sharpen daily. Accurate thinking is the refusal to believe without proof, to act without data, to assume without investigation. It means you do not say, I can't, unless it's objectively true. You do not say, it's too late, unless you have tested every path. You do not say, it's impossible, until you've exhausted your genius. Accurate thinking means you take control of your beliefs. You separate fact from opinion. You ask, is this true or is it just familiar? You refuse to believe that debt is normal, that stress is acceptable, that struggle is noble. You choose truth, no matter how uncomfortable. And with truth, you build a future not based on hope, but on solid stone. Your mind must become a laboratory, a place where ideas are tested, not worshipped, a place where fear is interrogated, not obeyed, a place where every belief is either a tool or it is removed. Because if you do not think accurately, you will be owned emotionally. And if you are owned emotionally, you will never be free financially. Now listen carefully. There is no man who is free of the responsibility to master his inner world. There is no man who earns peace without first earning clarity. There is no man who commands wealth without first commanding his thoughts. This is not motivational language. It is mechanics, psychological law, inner architecture. If you live in reaction, you will stress about money forever. But if you live in command, you will rise above it. You will design a financial life built on discipline, purpose, and unstoppable clarity. So ask yourself now, have I delayed mastery long enough? Have I traded calmness for chaos? Have I listened to fear more than to purpose? And if the answer is yes, then today is the day you begin again, but this time with power, this time with precision, this time with full control of the inner world that shapes everything else. Because once your mind is clear, you will never stress about money again. You have seen the laws, you have tasted the clarity, but now, if you are to never stress about money again, not just once, not just during a moment of motivation, but permanently, you must build a system. One you follow every single day, without fail, without excuse, without compromise. Because emotion, if not interrupted by structure, will always return, and fear, if not met by ritual, will always sneak back in. Let us now construct that system. It is not long, it is not complicated, but it is non-negotiable. This system is called the 5 Pillars of Inner Financial Command, a daily structure for eliminating emotional chaos, building discipline, and cultivating unstoppable mental wealth. We begin with Pillar 1, the mental opening ritual. Every single morning before the world enters your mind, you must enter it first. You must reclaim your mental territory before the noise of the world infects your focus. This is not optional. It is psychological warfare. Upon waking, sit in silence for exactly 5 minutes. No phone, no scrolling, no talking. In this silence, breathe slowly and say, with calm power, not force, I am the master of my thoughts. I do not chase. I create. I do not react. I choose. I am financially calm, emotionally disciplined, and mentally precise. I build wealth in thought first, then in action. Nothing owns me. I command my path. This is your mental throne. Sit on it. Speak from it every single day, because your subconscious does not obey dreams. It obeys ritual. You must speak like a commander. You must train your inner world to respond to your voice, not the world's volume. This ritual takes 5 minutes, and yet it begins the reprogramming of a lifetime of stress-based thinking. Now we move into Pillar 2, the clarity command. After the morning ritual, you immediately write down 3 things. Your financial North Star, the one goal that matters more than any temporary want. I am building a 6-figure investment portfolio. I am becoming debt-free with $10 Kelvin in monthly cash flow. I am building a business that prints freedom. Your emotional target, the inner state you choose to carry today. Unshaken clarity, detachment from fear, strategic awareness. Your financial action of the day, one clear, non-negotiable move. Message one investor. Decline unnecessary spending. Build the new offer. Cut one monthly expense. Study one new tool. This written clarity does more than remind you. It directs you. Without direction, the mind panics. With direction, the mind sharpens. Write your direction daily. Now, Pillar 3, the midday check-in, the reset. Around midday, when stress begins to rise, when distraction creeps in, when momentum begins to blur, you stop. Take 3 minutes, step away from all noise, and ask, am I emotionally detached, or am I letting the outside world inside me? Am I mentally sharp, or am I numbing with avoidance? Am I honoring the financial action I wrote this morning, or am I betraying it? This check-in is your interruption. It is your reset button. It is where you decide once again to be the architect of the day, not the victim of its chaos. You do not need a 3-hour routine. You need the 3rd of December ICIV minutes of clarity. Now, Pillar 4, the evening reinforcement ritual. At night, before rest, when most people scroll themselves into numbness, you reflect with accuracy. Open your notebook or digital journal and answer. What thought pattern owned me today? Where did I violate emotional discipline? Where did I command myself effectively? What did I learn about my reactions, my habits, or my financial decisions? What will I do differently tomorrow? Then write this sentence and mean it. I am not perfect, but I am precise. I adjust fast. I learn quickly. I forget nothing. I am building an unshakable mind, and every mistake becomes the tool of my next victory. You are not beating yourself up. You are building a feedback loop, the same loop, the elite use. Because if you do not study yourself, you cannot upgrade yourself. And if you cannot upgrade yourself, you will remain emotionally bound forever. Finally, we arrive at Pillar VC. The weekly dominance reset, every 7th day. This is the system of systems. Once a week, you sit with complete seriousness. You review the entire week's mental performance. You ask, was I in command this week or in reaction? What habits made me money? What habits cost me money? What emotional triggers sabotaged my power? What beliefs about money surfaced, and are they still useful? What must be eliminated this week internally or externally? What part of me is still addicted to stress and why? You then rewrite your financial North Star with updated clarity. You reset your habits. You install new safeguards. You decide what dies and what strengthens. This is how warriors are built, not through moments of hype, but through weekly strategic evolution. This is your blueprint. 5 pillars. Every day. No exceptions. And now, hear this final truth. You will never stress about money again. Not because life is perfect, not because there is no challenge, but because you are no longer weak inside. You will never fear the numbers again because you run them, because you study them, because you command them, because you know every dollar is a reflection of thought, and you now own your thoughts. You are not a consumer anymore. You are a constructor. You are not emotional noise. You are inner order. You do not respond to fear. You respond to vision. And because of that, the storm can come. The market can shake. The world can scream. But you will sit in perfect calm. You will think first. You will act decisively. And you will win. Because you have done the one thing most will never do. You have mastered the inner world. And now the outer world, including money, will obey. There is a moment invisible to the untrained, eternal to the disciplined, in which you are given a choice. A moment between the appearance of a problem and your interpretation of it. Between the shrinking of the bank account and the meaning you assign, between the unexpected expense and the story you allow to arise, that moment is your crown, and the world cannot take it unless you drop it. In that moment, your old programming may scream, "This is bad. This is a threat. This means I'm failing." But the master hears those thoughts as echoes, not orders. And instead of obeying, he listens. Instead of reacting, he watches. And then he chooses his thought. This is data, not disaster. This is challenge, not collapse. This is refinement, not rejection. And this is a call to rise, not a reason to retreat. This is the law beneath all others. You are not what happens. You are what you decide to think about what happens. Until that principle becomes bone deep, until it lives in your nervous system, until you breathe it in moments of fire and uncertainty, you will remain enslaved to your environment. And a man enslaved to his environment can never be free in his finances. Do not think in terms of rich or poor. Think in terms of reaction or response. The man who reacts remains broke, even if he earns. The man who responds with sovereignty builds wealth even in drought. Why? Because money does not follow fear. Money follows certainty, and certainty cannot be faked. It must be forged through exposure, through testing, through the choice to stand in alignment when everything around you invites collapse. Now let us go deeper into self-discipline, not as a rule, but as a form of love, the highest love you can ever offer yourself. Most think discipline is a restriction. But what is restriction, if not refinement? Discipline is the love you show your future self. Discipline is the evidence that you are serious. Discipline is the architecture of freedom. Because let me tell you the truth, Most men will avoid their whole lives. If you do not suffer a little now from discipline, you will suffer greatly later from disarray. The stress most people feel about money is not from lack of money, but from lack of integrity with themselves. They know they broke their word. They know they ignored the budget. They know they escaped the spreadsheet, avoided the conversation, overspent to impress, delayed the decision, numbed instead of led. That inner split, that's where stress lives. Stress is not just financial. It is existential guilt, the pain of a man who abandoned his own knowing. Discipline heals that. Discipline says, I will no longer betray my standard. It does not mean you never slip. It means you return fast. It means you no longer wait for motivation. You move from identity. It means you don't ask, do I feel like it? You say, is this aligned with who I am becoming? You do not discipline yourself to impress. You discipline yourself to become a person who cannot be rattled. And the man who cannot be rattled, the man who responds with strategy, the man who moves without panic, that man can face zero in the bank and build again. That man can lose a client and build again. That man can be misunderstood and still build. That man can be tired, doubted, ignored, rejected, and still build. Because his mind is the capital, his awareness is the asset. His stillness is the security. His discipline is the investment. And his thinking precise, objective, uncluttered is the compound interest. Now let us stretch auto-suggestion even further, not just as a ritual, but as a spiritual weapon. You must understand, the world is programming you every single day. The news, the noise, the narratives, the subtle fear, the endless scarcity. Every time you scroll and see someone doing more, earning more, bragging more, and you internalize it without filtering it, you have accepted a suggestion. And what is accepted without defense becomes a new command. And what is repeated becomes an identity. And what becomes identity governs your entire behavior. So you must become ruthless about your suggestions. No more. I'm trying. I'm behind. I'm overwhelmed. It's hard for me. I'm not good with money. I just don't understand it. Burn them. Delete them. Replace them with thought forms forged in steel. I am a master of direction. Money is my student, not my master. I study data, not drama. I operate in calm, precise alignment. I am building my empire through discipline, and no one can interrupt it. My thoughts are clean, my actions are clean, my finances reflect it. Auto-suggestion must not be performed like a mantra. It must be ingested like a weapon. Your mind must hear your voice more than it hears the world. Speak daily, speak clearly, speak with command. And finally, let us refine accurate thinking into a blade so sharp it cuts through every lie your old self tries to tell you. Accurate thinking is not pessimism. It is not skepticism. It is clarity at war with confusion. The undisciplined mind says, it's impossible. I'll never figure this out. They're just lucky. I'm cursed with bad timing. I need someone to rescue me. The accurate thinker says, let me see the data. What exactly am I afraid of, and is it real? What decision did I avoid that created this feeling? What skill is missing, and how fast can I acquire it? Who has solved this, and how did they think when they did? Accurate thinking takes all the emotional fog and slices it into clarity. It says, I will not think according to emotion. I will think according to truth. And that is how the war is won not once, but daily. You now see how each principle, each law, each ritual, and each command is not just an idea. It is a lifestyle of psychological sovereignty. It is the difference between tension and peace, between noise and wealth, between the old self and the architect of the new one. We now deepen what only the few will understand, that emotional detachment is not withdrawal, it is weaponization of awareness. Most confuse detachment with apathy. They think, if I'm detached, I won't care. Number, you will care more, but you will care strategically. You will care intelligently. You will care with such precision that you no longer waste your energy on what you cannot control, and that is where true power begins. The average man reacts to everything. The market dips, he panics. A bill arrives, he freezes. An unexpected expense, he spirals. Someone doubts him, he explains. Someone insults him, he defends. But the detached man, he watches, he calculates, he remembers his vision, and then he moves forward without emotion clouding the map. Detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of reaction. It is choosing response over reflex. It is holding power instead of proving it. It is staying silent when silence says more than 10,000 words. It is keeping your financial strategy invisible while others burn theirs for approval. A man ruled by emotion cannot build. A man detached from impulse can build for decades. Understand this. Every emotional storm is an invitation, not to scream, not to fight, but to train your poise under pressure. When the external world is uncertain, and it will be, you must not match its chaos. You must refuse, because once you become emotionally neutral, you become financially unshakable. And if you combine that with mental clarity, you will become untouchable. Now let us take this clarity deeper into what I call the discipline of emotional inventory. Every day, you must inspect your emotional state the same way an investor inspects the balance sheet. You do not wait for a breakdown. You audit yourself before the collapse. Ask, what thought triggered my stress today? What emotion drove my last 3 financial decisions? What fear am I dressing up as logic? Where did I lie to myself about what I truly want? Where am I still seduced by the comfort of the past? This is not about journaling. This is about intellectual combat. You are interrogating your reactions. You are not letting them move unchecked. You are putting your emotions on the stand and demanding evidence. If the feeling cannot be justified by purpose, it must be discarded. If the emotion does not strengthen the strategy, it must be rewired. Because let me tell you, emotional stress around money rarely comes from numbers. It comes from internal disorder, from contradicting desires, from undefined standards, from decisions made from weakness instead of alignment. You want peace? Then you must think like a strategist, act like a general, and live like a disciplined architect of your own psychological empire. That means no more emotional leaks, no more venting when you should be building, no more panic when you should be planning, no more explaining your financial situation to people who do not think on your level. You are not in the business of being understood, you are in the business of mastery. Now let us expand into a realm most never dare enter, the identity level of financial sovereignty. You can track your habits. You can improve your mindset. You can even follow the rituals. But until you become the kind of person who cannot be shaken, your progress will always be temporary. So I ask you, who are you when things go wrong? That's your real identity, not the version you post, not the version you journal, the one that shows up when your account is low, when your efforts stall, when the results are late. If in that moment you collapse into self-doubt, that's your real programming. If in that moment you blame, that's your level. If in that moment you need to be rescued, you are not yet free. But the identity you must choose is one forged in the furnace of total responsibility. That identity says, I build in silence. I recover fast. I do not explain my standard. I do not beg for ease. I train for power. I do not need circumstances to agree with me. I command my direction anyway. This identity cannot be faked. It must be earned. Earned by waking up when the old self wants to sleep. Earned by building when fear says wait. Earned by speaking into the void with calmness, knowing you are enough. Because until you believe that you are the kind of person who always finds a way, money will always feel like a moving target, and you will always feel like you're chasing it. But once you become inevitable, calm, focused, deliberate, unattached, then money becomes the consequence of your clarity. Let us now forge that identity through a new expansion of daily practice, one that goes beyond the system we built earlier. This is not for the beginner. This is for you, the committed, the disciplined, the mentally serious. It is called the inner wealth calibration, the elite ritual. Once a week, preferably in the early morning, when the world is silent and your mind is clean, you sit with one page, nothing more. And on that page you write, what emotions dominated my financial life this week? Which one served me? Which one sabotaged me? What assumptions did I carry into each decision? And were they accurate? Where did I compromise my identity to feel safe? What part of my old programming is still trying to survive in my new life? This is not a list. This is a confrontation. This is the mirror you never look into because when you do, your excuses dissolve. Once the page is filled, you do one thing. You identify the pattern and you kill it one at a time, week after week. Because a man who removes one illusion per week becomes a financial king within a year, not because he chases more, but because he sees clearly. Remember, it is not wealth that removes stress. It is alignment. It is the absence of self-betrayal. It is the presence of psychological clarity under pressure. And that presence can only be earned through this work. You now know what few know. You now do what fewer still will do. And if you continue with ruthless honesty, with unbreakable discipline, and with calm, silent, relentless certainty, then you will never stress about money again. Because you will no longer operate from fear. You will operate from truth. This is not about financial goals. This is about energetic identity, about who you are when nothing is happening, and who you refuse to be when the pressure rises. It is about the death of internal noise, the stripping away of all need for approval, and the formation of an internal gravitational field so strong that money, people, opportunities, and outcomes begin to orbit you. Not because you begged, but because you became. We now step into what I call energetic sovereignty, detaching from financial identity. There is a line, invisible to most, that once crossed, changes everything. It is the line between identifying with money and commanding it without attachment. The man who identifies with money says, if I don't have it, I'm a failure. If others earn more, I am behind. If I'm not making progress fast, I must be doing something wrong. If the numbers dip, my value dips with them. But the sovereign mind, the truly wealthy one, says, money is data. I am the constant. Money is a mirror. I read it, but I do not react to it. Money is not who I am. It is the result of who I choose to be. Let this truth sink into your bones. If your identity is fused with your finances, you will always be fragile. But if your identity is anchored in discipline, vision, and principle, then your finances can fluctuate, and you remain unmoved. You are not your income. You are not your account. You are not your status. You are not your past. You are the thinker. You are the observer. You are the designer. Detach from the number. Attach to the system. Detach from the outcome. Attach to the process. Detach from the comparison. Attach to the mission. This is not spiritual fluff. This is psychological weaponry, because the man who does not need to be seen cannot be manipulated. And the man who does not react when his finances shift is the one who eventually controls all of them. Now let us enter the next expansion, one that makes all of this operational across decades, not days. It is called multi-decade wealth thinking. Most people plan for the month, some plan for the year, almost none think in terms of decades, and that is why they panic. Because the shorter your time horizon, the more extreme your emotions. The longer your vision, the more stable your behavior. The man who thinks in weeks is anxious. The man who thinks in decades is calm. If your goal is to never stress about money again, you must train your mind to zoom out. When a storm comes, you ask, what does this mean to my 10-year wealth map? Most of the time, the answer is nothing. That one loss, it's a rounding error in the 20-year vision. That one delay, it's a single pause in a 1,000-step climb. That one failed offer, it's a whisper in a chapter, not the end of the story. You must begin designing your wealth thinking like an architect builds a cathedral. They do not build for applause next week. They build knowing it may take 40 years to complete. And yet they lay the stone with perfection. Because they are not building events, they are building legacies. And you must do the same. You must begin to think, what am I building that will outlive my moods? What strategy am I following that works across every market? What identity am I forging that cannot be shaken even if the numbers are? This is how stress dissolves, not by eliminating problems, but by raising the altitude of your thinking so high, the problems shrink beneath you. To never stress about money again is not to accumulate endlessly. It is to construct an internal ecosystem where peace is the default, Clarity is the filter, and action is the law. You say, where did I act from truth? Where did I act from fear? What patterns must be removed immediately? You do not lie to yourself. You do not protect your ego. You study yourself like a machine, and you upgrade weekly. Because that, above all, is what ensures peace. Not pretending, not performance, but perpetual evolution. And when you live this way, when your identity, your emotions, your actions, and your systems are all coherent, then money becomes what it was always meant to be: a servant, not a god, not a tyrant, not a symbol of worth, but a tool in the hands of a master. And that master is you.